Now we're gonna talk about the ingredients that make sake, how they interact together and create this amazing beverage that's just pure magic. So as far as the ingredients in sake, water would be the terroir. It certainly speaks for the regionality, the prefecture, the zone where it is. And it kind of dictates, almost like a beer brewery or like a distillery, let's say, talk about a Scottish distillery, and how it affects the final product. So you have two kinds of water. You have hard water and you have soft water. What water does to sake, it literally brings a little more of the weight in the palate. Whether it's hard water, you get a little more richer, more broad. Think about a Chateauneuf de Papen style. And then soft water brings a little very creamy, silky, softer style. Talk about a Bordeaux Blanc in style. The next ingredient is rice. There's about 100 plus strains of rice that are used uniquely to produce sake. So this is not your common table rice. This is designed with rice that have been cloned or evolved into having a little more starch. And basically what rice does, and each strain brings a lot of the flavor, the weight, the shape, the acidity into the final product. And this dictates a lot on the grade of sake. Depending on the rice strain, that dictates a lot of the flavors. And then from there, you go into the outer layers that you're taking away. You're milling away or polishing the grain of rice. So the more you dig into it, the purest, the more delicate styles you'll bring out, more aromatic, more feminine, and the least at the same time that you take out creates a more of a broad, complex, richer style. So let's talk about the three main steps. You have Junmai or Honjoso, that's 30% or less taken away. Ginjo or Junmai Ginjo, which is 40% or less. And the purest would be Dai Ginjo or Junmai Dai Ginjo, created a little more focused, more pure, more floral, feminine style. So if you look at the anatomy of a grain of rice, you have starches, you have fibers, and then in the heart, you have the proteins and a deeper, more compacted starch called shimpaku, which means the heart. So basically, by making the different grades of sake, you take away those layers, and you're definitely just creating a sake out of the purity of the center of the rice, or closer to. And think about it the other way too. If you only take a little bit out, you remain with more terroir, more whatever attracted from the earth, the richness, all the outer layers out of the grain of rice. So it directly correlates. By milling, they're polishing away out of the grain of rice. So it basically goes in this machine that it's almost like sandpaper, takes away a little bit of that out of the outer layers of the grain of rice, and then it cools it down. The process to make a Dai Ginjo, which is the highest polishing, can take up to 3 days. So think about this, because the grain of rice is fragile, so you don't want to crack it. So you take some away, you cool it, keeps going in this cycle until the final product. And it's crazy, because you grab 2 grains of rice out of the machine and they look exactly the same. And you're definitely aiming for the same consistency in the grain of rice. The next ingredient would be koji. Koji is a very tricky ingredient. It's a bacteria or a mold that's basically used throughout Japan. It's used to make soy sauce, miso soup, shochu, which is Japan's distillate, needs to have koji. And in sake, this is a very important ingredient. Think about it this way. The grain of rice doesn't have the sugar that a grape does, right? So you harvest a grape to make wine, and it brings out all the sugar that converts into alcohol. For rice, you have starch. So what koji does, it comes into the rice, it interacts with it, and brings out and converts the starches into sugars for then the yeast to come over and convert into alcohol. So this is why it's so important and a key ingredient. You simply cannot make sake without koji. Koji basically lives everywhere. It's this mold that it's harvested from several different fruits and grains, but the way for sake production is basically from the rice, and it's harvested from rice itself and maintained like that. There's 3 different styles, main styles of koji. There's yellow koji, which is mostly used for sake. There's black koji, that's mostly used for shochu. And then there's white koji, that's used sometimes for sake or other ingredients as well. There's the fourth ingredient, and very important. This is yeast. So yeast, basically, it's gonna come and eat all the sugars away, and in place, give us aromas. So you have several different yeast strains throughout Japan. That certain yeast strains are gonna output different aromas, different flavors, whether it's fruity, bubblegummy, banana aromas, which some people tend to really enjoy, or other styles that are a little more earthy, more woodsy, more different aromas driven, derived out of the yeast. Sometimes in sake, you have a fifth ingredient, and much like the Beatles had Billy Preston and the Keys sitting in the back, sometimes you never knew about it. But in this case, you do know when it's there. So it's distilled alcohol. Basically, distilled alcohol gets added to the final product of sake. So the sake has been made with the 4 ingredients we spoke about, finalized, you get this much, then brewer's alcohol comes in. It's produced out of several things. There's nothing that designates with a provenance. It could be wheat, it could be sugarcane, which is the most popular. Some cases it could be sake that's been distilled. So this distillate gets added after the batch has been finished. Unlike port or Madeira or another wine beverage, you don't stop fermentation with it. You add it after it's been fermented. And then you water down. So a lot of people get scared when they hear this and they think, oh, that's just rocket fuel. This is gonna kill me tonight. I'm not ready to drink that. But basically, honjozo, what it's called, gets added, and then the water brings it down to a regular alcohol level, which is about 16% on average for sake. And then the product it brings out, it's very different. It's a very focused, sharp, a little more uplifter aromatics. A lot of people, and for me in a lot of occasions, I prefer honjozos. The best way to realize when you have a honjozo in front of you or not, if it's on the base level of polishing of the grain of rice, it says honjozo on the label. If it's a ginjo or daiginjo, it's gonna be the same, but it's gonna omit the word junmai. And if we go back, junmai means pure rice, and therefore, when there's the absence of the word, you can assume there's brewer's alcohol been added to that sake.